It is Sunday, September 28th, and we have a big show today, an important show. The new Joint Terror Task Force investigating and combating Antifa has made a major discovery, what's being called a smoking gun that may link the Soros Open Society Foundation to arson, even to material support of terrorism. This could be a game changer. We're going to show you. And what in the world is happening across the pond in the UK? Digital ID now mandatory, major backlash unfolding. This is the playbook, folks. It's part of Agenda 2030, the United Nations plan for transforming our world by 2030. They're watching how this unfolds over there before trying it here in the States.
The New York Times reports a senior DOJ official has instructed more than half a dozen U.S. attorneys' offices to draft plans investigating a group funded by Democrat billionaire George Soros. Pam Bondi is declining to comment on the matter yesterday at the White House, but she said everything is on the table. It comes as President Trump signed a memorandum yesterday calling on federal law enforcement to investigate domestic terrorism and organized political violence. As you know, we spoke with Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna about another big left-wing donor, Neville Singham, who she said works with the Chinese Communist Party and also sows discontent in America.
The Trump DOJ has now drawn up plans to investigate the Soros Open Society Foundation from everything from arson to even material support of terrorism. We reported this week how the Soros Foundation started receiving communication from the DOJ to preserve and possibly turn over documents. What kind of documents? Maybe bank records? What they asked for is still unclear, but we know communication has begun. Well, now we're learning even more as to just how far the DOJ has gotten, how serious they are about cutting the head off this snake for these left-wing extremist groups. Ryan Morrow, an investigator for the CRC, publishing this bombshell report alleging that the Soros-funded foundation has funneled more than $80 million into groups linked to terrorism and extremist violence. And we know this report's credible, a 90-page report with deep sourcing, because senior DOJ officials cited this report this week as evidence for bringing criminal charges. Multiple mainstream outlets even covering this, quoting Akash Singh, who is this senior DOJ official working directly under Todd Blanche, sending this order out to 7 U.S. attorneys' offices, including California, New York, Illinois, Michigan, Maryland. In the order from Todd Blanche's office, they list potential charges that these attorney general offices should consider preparing against the Open Society Foundation, including material support of terrorism, arson, wire fraud, and racketeering, among others. In this report, which you could see here, 90 pages, by the way, in deep sourcing, it breaks down how much of Open Society Foundation's resources have allegedly been spent on funding terror. And realize the Open Society Foundation has approximately $25 billion in assets currently. Since its inception, it's dispersed another $32 billion for various causes. This report claiming it was able to identify and track 80 million of those dollars that they say assisted with domestic terror. The investigation separating Open Society's funding of extremist groups into 3 categories. 23 million, they say, given to grantees that directly assist domestic terror and criminality on U.S. soil. 50 million to grantees that have endorsed terror attacks like those on October 7th, and 9 million to grantees that qualify as associates of terror groups. And from what we understand, Todd Blanche's office, they're focusing on that first category, on category 1, the monies that they sent to groups directly assisting domestic terror. And they go through in exhaustive detail how this 23 million was spent. The seed groups who were paid, such as the Center for Third World Organizing, the Ruckus Society, and the Blackout Collective, amongst others. The Blackout Collective, they say, which calls itself a Black Direct Action Organization and produced a pro-Hamas guide that glorifies the October 7th terror attacks in Israel. The guide also provides Ruckus Society materials that advocate for and provide instructions for executing illegal direct actions, including property destruction, evading law enforcement, using false IDs, occupying buildings and land, seizing assets, revealing the identities of government agents like doxing, blockades, interfering with governmental or industrial operations, and economic shutdowns. All of these actions, they say, qualify as acts of domestic terror. The New York Times now reporting that Singh has instructed more than a half dozen U.S. attorneys to explore charges against OSF. That's the Open Society Foundation, George Soros's foundation, ranging from racketeering and wire fraud to arson and material support for terrorism. And realize who George Soros is, right? He's been able to get away with all this for how long now? Why is that? George Soros has a net worth of $7.5 billion, yet his organization, the Open Society Foundation, holds over $25 billion in assets, dispersed another $32 billion since 1990. Yet he's worth $7.5 billion. Where's all this extra money coming from? He's not using his own $7.5 billion, that's for sure. It's coming from us, folks, all of us. Listen to Elon Musk explain how this works. Watch.
It's kind of a hack to the system where someone can get an NGO stood up for a fairly small amount of money. Like George Soros was really good at this. Like George Soros is like a system hacker. Like he figured out how to hack the system. He's a genius at arbitrage. I mean, these days he's pretty old, but a genius at arbitrage. So he figured out that you could leverage a small amount of money to create a nonprofit, then lobby the politicians to send a ton of money to that nonprofit, so you can take what might be, a $10 million donation to a nonprofit to create a nonprofit and leverage that into a $1 billion NGO. And a nonprofit is a weird word. It's just a non-governmental organization. And then the government continues to fund that every year. And it'll have a nice sounding name, like the Institute for Peace or something like that. But really, it's a graft machine.
And what are the requirements with that money? What do they have to do?
Just really no requirements at all.
So they just get grants and the government just assumes that they're doing good work.
I think a lot of people in the government know that they're not doing good work. But it's a giant graft machine.
Meanwhile, the carnage that comes from funding these extremist groups continues to play out across America. The ICE detention facility in Portland under siege this week. The ICE facility in Chicago has been dealing with hundreds of these left-wing radicals for weeks now, weeks of nonstop nightly riots. Just last night, hundreds of rioters gathered outside the ICE Broadview Processing Center, preventing vehicles from entering or leaving the facility. These rioters, they are organized, they are funded, sending out legal scouts now. Check this out, fashioned with green hats. You can see them here. The people you see with these green hats are members of this Antifa legal group called the National Lawyers Guild. The group's funded to help Antifa escape prosecution. There is serious funding behind this. Let's see if Trump's DOJ can make some progress, if this new anti-terror task force is able to succeed in dismantling these networks. Let me know what you think's going to happen. In another story, the UK has just implemented mandatory digital ID. Prime Minister Keir Starmer leading the effort himself, announcing this week that if you don't have it, if you don't get your digital ID, if you don't get on board, you can no longer hold a job, you can no longer work in the UK. Watch.
For too many years, it's been too easy for people to come here, slip into the shadow economy, and remain here illegally. Because, frankly, we've been squeamish about saying things that are clearly true. It's not just that it's not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labour that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages, but the simple fact that every nation needs to have control over its borders. We do need to know who is in our country. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on. Otherwise, it undermines trust, undermines people's faith that we're on their side, and their belief that the state can and will work for them. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
What's crazy about this is what's happening in the UK now is what was planned for the US if Trump hadn't have won. This was the direction we were headed, folks. Trump's put a stop to it in the US, but Europe, the UK, they don't have a Donald Trump. It's been the ambition of every totalitarian state to control every aspect of our life, specifically to control your conduct and to eradicate dissent for centuries. This couldn't be done. They just didn't have the technology, the technological capacity. But they do now. China was the first to roll this out. Now, if you live in Shanghai, you can't even jaywalk without getting this automatic ticket. Facial recognition will catch you, will catch your bad behavior, your bad conduct. And they don't mail you a ticket. No, it's automatically added to their digital ID database. It pings your phone instantly, letting you know about your naughty mistake, deducts it from your social credit score. It's like corrective action dog training. If you do the wrong thing, you're instantly pinged. Let me know what you think about this. Everyone always mentions China when it comes to this. Well, it's no longer China, folks. It's the UK, our closest ally in the world, rolling this out. Pretty frightening. And there's a lot of pressure on President Trump to go in this direction. It's part of Agenda 2030. It's been in the works for years, since 2015. But if you watched Donald Trump since he came back into office, he's morphing this plan into his own America First version, ditching the digital ID, trying to pass a law outlawing CBDCs, but moving full steam ahead with crypto, with AI. If you watched his address this week at the United Nations, you know the AI race in the blockchain industry is top of mind for him. It's a must win. He tore into the climate agenda, which destroyed the energy output of Western nations, and implored Europe specifically to reject it and immediately return producing energy for their citizens. This all ties into the topic that we're going to discuss next, the massive wave in AI and blockchain, because whoever doesn't know what's happening will be crushed by the tsunami of changes. And if you stay with me in the coming minutes, we're going to get into this, all right? Some of the wealthiest people, most successful people in this country are diving headfirst into this. Look at what billionaire and visionary Barry Silbert's saying about the timing of what we're going to talk about. Watch.
Covers this. We're all trying to properly position the businesses that we're building, the investing that we're doing before the world wakes up to this amazing thing that's being built.
All right, that wraps up the news portion of this video. Now let me tell you about the sponsor for today, NextGen Digital Platforms, US symbol NXTDF, which ties into everything we just mentioned and just went public with a 4-sectoral business model that marries AI, decentralization, and compute with a focus on Bit&Soar, which billionaire Barry Silbert compares to Bitcoin in 2013 when its price was less than $500. It will acquire Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Tau to its balance sheet, but on top of that, it will issue debentures to attract family offices and money managers that own these assets to accept shares of NXTDF in exchange for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Tau. Secondly, NextGen Digital Platforms is looking to begin mining. The company's always looking at ways to stake, validate, and invest in the Bit&Soar network, be it through contributing compute or by investing in subnets themselves. NextGen Digital Platforms is also engaged with high-performing teams leading attractive businesses that are building infrastructure for this AI blockchain revolution. They've selected several targets already with the help of expert advisors already appointed to the board. And what I'm talking about is only in its infancy. I can't stress enough just how early we are to be talking about this. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, predicts AI will create more millionaires in the coming 5 years than the internet did in 20 years. Right now, the AI world is also dominated by closed giants. Bit&Soar and its token Tau is a blockchain project that created a decentralized marketplace for AI. And I've heard some of the most successful blockchain entrepreneurs say Bit&Soar is to AI what Bitcoin was for money.
6 months, just really kind of digging in and my team, kind of getting me excited about it and starting to meet the people in kind of the ecosystem. And I came to the conclusion, just like with Bitcoin, I think that this has the potential to be as transformative as Bitcoin. And I will regret it if I don't do something.
Billionaire Barry Silbert personally betting would become one of the largest. He says one of the top 3. Bitcoin made money decentralized and didn't require a central point of origin and went from 1 cent to now over $110,000, creating an entire new class of millionaires, multimillionaires, and billionaires of everyday people. It's amazing. NextGen Digital Platforms, ticker NXTDF, is one of the first companies, though, that are focusing on Bit and Soar. If NextGen Digital Platforms, being this early to this revolution, can integrate its operation to Bit and Soar successfully by investing in Tau, but also by contributing to the network with compute, staking, validating, and investing in subnets, then the potential is substantial in my opinion, and that's why I'm bringing this to your attention. This could go down as one of the most important videos I've ever produced. That's how early we are about this. Institutions can't even access it easily, let alone the subnets on the network. Bit and Soar is before its first ever halving. NextGen Digital Platforms is one of the first and only companies in the world that I'm aware of focused on Bit and Soar. It's the first serious attempt to decentralize and democratize the most important technology of our time, artificial intelligence. It's the platform upon which every other industry will be rebuilt. NextGen Digital Platforms intends to be focused on Bit and Soar from a number of different angles, including adding Tau, the native token, to its balance sheet as a starter, but on a much deeper level as well, by actually integrating to the network, by contributing to it with compute power, and by staking, validating, mining, alongside becoming invested in these subnets themselves. So look, do your research on NextGen Digital Platforms. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.